Okay, what's up, everybody? It's Trish, and I'm back with another video. And today I have my friend Tanya. She is a foreign graduate. She graduated
Mm.
from the Philippines. We actually went to preschool together, and then ended up moving to the US. So I don't have experience in being a foreign nurse and graduating that, but I've been getting a lot of questions about that in my DMs. And I thought, you know what? Why not ask my friend who's actually done it on what her process was? So, without further ado, we are going to interview her and hear her story.
Hey Pat, hey everybody. My name is Tanya, and yes, I came and graduated from the Philippines and then moved here to the US last March 2019. So I graduated March 2015. I did a little bit of volunteer work from in the hospital. While doing volunteer work, I started processing my NCLEX and was able to take NCLEX October of 2016, more than a year until I really took the NCLEX exam. October 2016, I already signed up with my agency, and that's when they reimburse all the fees that my family paid for my NCLEX, and then they were able to petition me right away for a priority date. So the priority date is the date that we usually look in the internet if it's already current and can be processed to further stages for the immigrant visa. October 2016, I was able to have my priority date through my agency, and then I was able to came in the US March of 2019.
Oh,
So more than 2 years
is
of
that
processing.
standard for
Mhm.
like Philippine time?
I guess it's already a good time frame compared to other nurses before that they have to wait for 5 to 10 years.
Oh,
So the
wow.
time frame, it really depends on the demand.
Oh, wow. And then if you are a US citizen, like you said you had friends who are US citizens and just took the
Mhm.
NCLEX, it was easier for them to come back because they were already US citizens.
Yes, they were able to come back right away. They still need to process, like me, like the credentials for the school. However, it was easier and faster as well. And they were able to have good jobs here already. So
Okay.
there's not a lot of problems when you are a US citizen already. A little bit about nursing school in the Philippines, a bachelor's degree compared to here in the US, you can have the associates or the bachelor's. So it's required in the Philippines that you take it 4 years for bachelor's degree. And then when we graduated, we finally registered to take our board exam. And when we take our board exam, we have to do it all together with our classmates. In a year, it would be two board exams to be taken. It's either you're going to be on the May of that year or the November, if I'm not mistaken.
Is that
Hmm.
nationwide that you can only take it twice in a year?
Yeah. So just like in the US, we can take the NCLEX in the Philippines at our own pace.
What was nursing school like in the Philippines? Was it more difficult?
I think it would be a little bit harder compared to the US setting and in the Philippines it's way different. We have to take classes all together with my classmates, and then we have to maintain a certain grade, or if not, you're gonna be delayed for another semester or even a year. In my case, I have to make a cutoff grade of 83 in our university. In the Philippines, you have to take those English classes, history classes, all those sorts of religion classes until fourth year. At the end of our fourth year, we have to submit those theses
Yeah. Okay.
individually before we need to take our board exam. The thesis is only for
Oh,
fourth
it's
year
that.
program.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's just for fourth year, but we need to pass in order to take the board exam. I can vividly remember that we were practicing dances for during our fourth year for our, I don't know, PE class, I guess. We have to practice, and at the same time some of our classmates have printers and laptops at the side doing theses, and my classmates and I would usually bring our printer to the classroom because at the end of the day we need to submit and everything needs to be revised, and we have a printer nearby to print all those stuff. It's
Oh my
crazy.
gosh. So it does sound like a lot of work going to school in the Philippines.
Yeah, I guess you can say it's all sweat, blood, and tears.
You plan on working in the Philippines, and then um, how did you go about trying to move somewhere else?
Some of my friends who were born here or US citizens that studied in the Philippines didn't took the Philippine board exam. They went straight ahead to process the NCLEX, but I guess it's a separate process again. But some of my friends who were immigrants here in the US still took the board exam there, and then took the NCLEX here as well. The Philippine exam is a different process, and the NCLEX is way different process. The NCLEX, I guess, it's a little bit more complex since you have to do it alone, and a lot of research needs to be done. For the Philippine board exam, I guess it's easier because we're already there, and the teachers guide us, or the review centers guides us along the way on how to process though. Whenever we need to ask a question, somebody could answer it right away. Unlike the NCLEX, we have to do some research.
And then would you say that the Philippine board exam was just as hard as the NCLEX, or are they very different?
I guess it's very different in a way that the Philippine board exam, you have to take it for 2 days, and then you have to do it manual. Yeah. So a total of 5 tests, 5 different topics that you have to be there for at least 2 days. It's day one and day two. I took it together with my classmates, and then it's handwritten, not computer based, unlike the NCLEX. And every topic would be at least, no, it would be 100 items.
So 500 items in total.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my gosh, that sounds insane.
So NCLEX is mixed depending on the questions they generate, and depending on the answers that you have been given from the previous question. In the Philippine board exam, you have to take it like topic by topic. Usually there would be a little bit of mix when it comes to topics, but mostly it would stick. For example, med surge would really cover med surge most of the time, or maternal would cover the 100 item would mostly cover at least 75% would maternal topics.
Do you think that you're more prepared?
When it comes to be work-wise or the examination?
I guess both. You could say both.
Okay, I would cover first the examination part, because the Philippine examination or the review part for us, in my case, it would take few months. So I graduated May, and then I went to the nursing board review around June, and then we took it for until November. So we have to go there for a series of classes, 8 to 5, and then at the last part, nearing the exam, we have to be in house. Like my classmates and I would go to a boarding house that we do our classes there, and then we slept there, and then we just do and practice for the exam. So when you register, you have to take it. Unlike on the NCLEX, we have to do it on our own pace. Our NCLEX has reviews. However, you can do it at your own pace, and then you can take it whenever you feel you're ready.
Oh my gosh, wow. That sounds really intense. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Um,
it is intense. And in our case, like I came from a Catholic university, or my review center is partnered with a with my university. So spiritual learning or spiritual exercises were really there most of the time, because at the end of our review classes, we do pray at night and in the morning before and after we have our reviews.
were you set on working in the Philippines at all?
I guess in my case, I was really aiming for the United States alone, not even in the UK or other Asian countries, for the reason that my family is already here. So I think I was really set that US would be my target as working, and then I guess Philippine setup would be a little bit of my training ground.
What things do you need to take the NCLEX when you're in the Philippines?
Processing NCLEX in the Philippines is a little bit of a complex process, because it would start first with your accreditation, and then the registration, and then the final schedule. So the accreditation, I accredited my or validated my credentials using the CGFNS company. I processed it via the internet. I registered my stuff, and then what I have to do is to go to my school, give the registration to be filled up by the school, and then the school would send it via mail to the CGFNS company regarding my school transcript. I also have to go to the PRC. That's the Regulatory Commission for Nurses. That's where we took our nursing licensure exam. So I have to go in there to again give the application form to be submitted by the PRC, and then to be sent again to the CGFNS regarding this time for my nurse's licensure. And then the third one is coming from my personal information. I have to fill up a series of information and then send it by mail to the company to be accredited. So once it is all accredited from your school, from your nursing license, and from your personal information, they would send a report that this person is valid and all her credentials are valid to take the exam. And then you have to then registered for the state that you want to get certified. Their process varies from state to state. So what I complied is the CGFNS report, the registration fee I guess it would be at least that time it's still $90. And then they have this fingerprinting. I have to go to a agency here to have myself fingerprinted and then have it mailed again back to the Illinois Board of Nursing. They would then finally give you a go signal that you are ready to take the exam, and they will release your AT&T. When you have those AT&T, you at least have 3 months to take your board exam, or else you need to register again and make sure that those documents are really complete, or else you have to go back to the agency again and to have them let it mail again to the company. And mailing from the Philippines takes a lot of time, and at the same time costs a little bit too much. When you sum it up, I guess for the total for the NCLEX registration alone, it would be at more or less $1,000 too.
Why did you pick Illinois?
I chose Illinois because first, it's a little bit easier compared to other states. And also, I have an aunt there just in case that it would be my choice of work. At least I have an aunt there.
Do you have to have the money beforehand? If you don't have the resources or the money, how do you get by?
I was fortunate enough to found an agency that would cater new graduates, would accept them and process their immigrant application with very little experience. I know right now that there are more agencies than mine who would even cater direct hires, which means you can process by your own without having a cut with your salary. Some don't even have to pay the registration and all that stuff and would reimburse you.
Oh,
So there are different kind of agency which has different kind of options as well. In my case, I process it first. All the registration, my family have to cater the fees. However, I was fortunate enough that they accepted me and they reimbursed my fees for the processing. Other nurses has this agency who would really cater them, like from the registration to the review to the test taking and even the hotel accommodation while taking the exam. The other agency, you can cater all your fees. They won't have any cut on your salary when you already work here. So it's very crucial to choose the right agency, because some people would really offer well, like, okay, we would reimburse you and blah blah blah. They would take a cut on your salary, and it end up when you're here or other nurses before you are already here, there would be a lot of problems along the way of taking too much, or like assignment stuff. At the end, some people would breach the contract. They'll put the agency on a bad name because the agency weren't doing the right stuff. So it ends up that other nurses back home would have a delayed process because the agency who are taking too much cut from the nurses here would make a bad name in the embassy, that the embassy would reject the application for the future nurses who are still in the Philippines. So for example, your contract says you're assigned to this unit and they would put you in another unit. So that's a very crucial thing. I guess I would really advise nurses to, when they sign before the contract, they would ask other employees who are already working under the agency so that they can have a little bit of background. Because other agencies who are small time, but they would make you pay for the fees and everything. But when you get in here, you are settled, and then they don't get a cut on your salary. If you're gonna breach the contract here, there you have to pay, but you can choose, and you're gonna be free. I guess the best advice would be to really ask the nurses who are already under that contract and take it from there, because some has good and bad, but I guess you just have to choose the lesser evil or the yeah for when choosing the agencies.
so how long are your contracts with your agencies usually?
Before, usually it would just be 2 years, but I guess they need more and they need to have nurses stay longer. So the average right now is at least 3 years to be in an agency.
What type of visa do you have?
Nurses are granted or given an immigrant visa. All of us are immigrant visa we are kind of like we just can't vote, but the privileges are there. For a total of 5 years that you're going to be staying here, you can already apply for citizenship. So other nurses like who wants to breach the contract, like for example, worst case scenario, they can't, they don't like the pay, the treatment is bad, our agency would let us pay a certain amount depending on how many months or years you have already worked, and they would subtract it from the total damages that they would say. It would be subtracted depending on the number of months or years that you have been working with them.
What was the process for you to apply for work in the US? Did you have to take like any extra classes?
Before you really come over to the United States, they would require you a visa screen. So that's another form of registration under CGFNS company that would require you to take IELTS. So the IELTS is an English exam that you need to pass before going in here. The visa screen, you need to comply as several requirements such as the IELTS, which is the English exam, your NCLEX examination results, and your CGFNS report. So it would cover everything, and they would issue you a visa screen certificate, and you will bring it when you have the embassy interview. And in my case also, our agency, before we really flew to the United States, we just have to take the BLS and the ACLS. So just in case that we will be assigned to a unit that needs a BLS and an ACLS certificate, we have it on hand already. Other than that, everything went smoothly. The pre-employment classes, which is usually typical for a new hire, we also took that classes as well. Like the Filipinos who will be transitioning here, the biggest adjustment would be electronic
Like,
charting. In the Philippines, we have to do almost everything manually,
oh,
paper charting, like the cards. There's no scanner, there's no
I mean,
barcode
I guess that
reading.
makes sense, right? Like
But
if you don't have the resources, like I can only imagine.
I'm just surprised when I saw a kangaroo pump because we didn't have it in the Philippines, or in my hospital we don't have kangaroo pumps. Filipinos are very flexible and very
Very innovative,
versatile.
yeah. And does it just depend like where you want to go?
Is there usually the big factor would be money and family member who are already there. Um, so when it comes to money, like US would take a lot when it comes to processes. But I knew other agencies who are from other agency for other countries cater it well, and they also help the applicants or the nurses who would want to go there, and it would not take too much time compared to the US. So
Got it.
that's why there's a lot more agencies are partnered with other countries compared to the US.
What was your embassy interview like?
It wasn't that too bad like other people would describe it, because it was it was easy, and I think the agency really prepared as well on with regards to the questions and to the documents that we need to bring during the interview. So it was just like an hour or two that we have to be there in the embassy in Manila, and then everything went smoothly. We already knew right away after the interview if we passed or not. So basically it's the basic work interview questions. So
Okay.
where are you working? What unit will you be assigned in? The consul would be very particular to your pay rate. They just want to make sure that when you go in the US, your salary rate is competitive, that you can live, or it is good for the standard of living to that state.
Can you specialize right away as a foreign nurse?
So the unit that you will be assigned is really dependent on your work in the Philippines. So for example, I work basically most of the time in med-surg unit. So I was assigned here in med-surg tele unit. Other nurses who had a specialty already previously in ICU or step down, most of the time they are assigned to that unit as well. For your embassy interview, you already have your unit, you already have your pay grade, you already have your hospital location. So everything is already set out for you. So the hospital would issue you a letter that here is your assignment, here is your location, here is your shift, and this will be your pay grade. You need to have it before going to the interview.
And they do that all online?
Just online, like phone call, and yeah, just phone call actually.
Do you only interview with one place or can you interview with multiple places?
So my agency has different affiliations, so it really depends. They would lay out your resume. A hospital would choose choose you to be interviewed. If you cannot be chosen, you will have to wait until a hospital chooses you to be interviewed. You can always accept or deny if you don't like the location and the unit, and then you will have to wait again. But in my case, the first hospital that interviewed me, I already accepted it, and they accepted me. And then
Regarding moving here, did you already get housing from your agency, or transportation? Like how did you go about that, not having like a US credit card to be able to
oh
like
yeah,
finance these sorts of things?
my uncle gave me his old car, so I don't have to. Yeah, I don't have to process all that stuff. But other people went through a specific company that you would pay, that it's in alliance with my agency. So that company is in alliance with my agency, that they would provide cars to um, new migrants.
And is
So
that
yeah.
your car forever, or is it just are you renting this car?
Oh, that can be you. It's technically you can have it. It's like purchasing that car already at a
Okay.
higher rate, like for a simple car for at least $300, where you can, with that money, you can already have a nicer car with that
Mhm.
value. And for the accommodation, we are given a housing allowance. First, we came to the US. We have a budget of $1,000. That's already our housing allowance. So you get a house or a room, you would be staying in a hotel, and that $1,000 the hotel would get it until you move out from the hotel. So whatever is remaining from that money, you could use it for your rent.
So are you comfortable talking about how you found your housing and then how much you kind of had to pay?
I guess mine is really cheaper. I can say that because I rent a room from a Filipino family, and they're really really nice to give me a good amount of money, not to pay, and it's cheaper compared to other places to rent with. I started finding some rooms to rent here around the area, and it is times two to what this Filipino couple offered to me. So it's a really big help.
Wow.
But for other people or other nurses, it depends on the location or the state. When you have a car also to pay, like a new car to pay through that agency or through that company, you really have to work on your expenses and your allowance.
Can you tell us a little bit about what the process is like for people that do have families?
I guess the good thing about applying as a nurse here in the US is that you could bring your family right then and there. The big question is the money as well, because you have when you apply, the agency would just have to pay for the applicant itself. You have to pay for your family members or who you want to bring with,
Out of your
like
own
for
pocket.
example, yeah, out of your own pocket.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your job?
So my unit is med surge telemetry. We also covered during when the start of COVID, they transitioned our unit to a secondary COVID unit. Any excess from the primary or would be on our unit. They don't offer us hazard pay or even an extra pay just for having, taking care of COVID patients. Problem with staffing. Before the start of COVID, there would be also problem with our PPEs because they wouldn't supply us that much, especially with the N95s. We are handling COVID patients, however, they won't supply us with N95s unless that patient is on aerosolizing generating procedures. But right now, I think it really improved. And yeah, it's a big struggle, especially in our agency, because given the fact that they have a cut in our salary, and we were asking from them if we could have a little bit of more.
So do you have any like last minute advice that you want to cover one more time or any
The growth here as a nurse in the US is overwhelming, to the fact that you learn a lot. The resources are there. It's just up to the nurse who would like to take on the challenge, and to expand herself in terms of growth, knowledge, and skills. Um, and the US offers a lot in here. And I'm really happy if Filipino nurses would also take the chance of going here and showcase their skills and knowledge, because it's really different as well to to learn, and then at the same time teach other people what you got to.
when you're done with your contract, is it going to be easy for you to transfer to like let's say a different state?
So once our contract ends, so we can go wherever we want. We can transfer whatever state we want. So we can have the basic pay, like whatever nurses got in the a regular hospital, and we could have the same benefits just like a regular employee at all.
Well, thank you for letting me interview you. I'm sure this was helpful.
Thank you.
If you guys have any questions, you can always drop them down below, and then Tanya will get back to you. So thanks for listening to this video, and I'll see you in the next one.
Thank
Bye.
you, Pat. Bye.